Hello, everybody, and welcome to this crash course introduction, basic modeling and material design animation with Blender. Blender is a 3D animation modeling, rendering, even video cutting program. It's open source. That is one software I use since many, many years. It is actually very popular because it is pretty free. Well, $0. It's open source. And when you go to YouTube, if you don't know about it, you can Google, for example, best of Blender to take a look at some of the work people do with it. Be careful, don't use the wrong Blender video, use the correct Blender videos. And for example, here, now you can see if I quickly scrub through it, the quality of work and the diversity of projects you see Blender being used for ranges from architectural modeling, character design, sci-fi. Literally, well, there's no limit to what you can do with it. It is really an extremely powerful program. It's also sponsored by Apple, Facebook, Epic Game Engine, and others. They actually develop parts for it or support the Blender Foundation via funding so they can hire professional developers. Okay, so to get Blender, you can go to blender.org. It runs on Mac, PC, and Linux. On the Mac, it also, for those who have it, it runs now on the new architecture, the Apple Silicon, including metal support. I can click on download, and then based on your system, you simply download what you need. I have Apple Silicon. You see, the program is pretty small. When you download it, it's not really very big. Okay, so once you download the program, then you can install it, simply drag it onto your application folder on a Mac or use the installer on a PC. And let's start it. So I will give you a pretty brief introduction of the interface and how things work, how to set this up, and then we get going. So Blender first up front uses a one window interface, which means we have individual elements. So this is, for example, our main 3D modeling. Down here is the timeline. This is the window for all the properties. You see here when I click on this, this is the light, this is an object, this is the camera. So this is adaptive to what you have selected. Here we have an object lister with collections. Instead of using layers, which makes no sense in 3D space, it uses collections, which makes much more sense. And then up here, we also have more interface switches. So it's different layouts, nothing else. Then the main command. And then every interface might have its own individual menu. So for example, here for the 3D modeling view, select, add objects and object transformations and such. On the left side is the toolbar. And in the 3D view right here, there's this tiny triangle. You can press N to show it. That's the property window or palette. This is where you then see lots of additional information like where's this object positioned. Every object has a center point. So this is kind of like in Maya, where you have objects, and then you can go into edit mode and edit the content. For example, the geometry, but more to that later. Okay, so before we continue, let me one time click here this. So we have the original interface. When you go to edit and preferences, let's set up a few things. Interface, based on your eyesight and the display, you can make this bigger and smaller. And this is where you can do this. You can show the splash screen if you want to, what color picker you would like to work with more. Themes, we can ignore. Viewport, there's not much really we can set up. Maybe more anisotropic filtering, but most of the stuff you can ignore. Editing, no. Add-ons, just for those who are interested in, there are a bazillion of extensions. to increase modeling animation capabilities. Because it's open source, like SketchUp, it has a really big industry or not industry, collections of add-ons you could install. For those who are interested, just Google it. We want to go to input. So if you are on not a mouse with 3 buttons or so, you can do this emulate 3 buttons. That really can help. I actually have a dedicated mouse with 3 buttons, or you can use the scroll wheel. There you can basically see now how the middle mouse button can be emulated by Alt and left click. I find very often the middle mouse button to be, with the scroll wheel, very complicated and tricky to use on a lot of mice, which is why I have the 3D Connection cat mouse, which has a real 3D button. If you are on a laptop and you need the numpad here, you can turn this on. If you're on a normal keyboard, you don't need this. Navigation, keep everything the way how we have here. Very good. Yeah, this is good. Key map, this is the important one. Left. And for spacebar, it is actually set to play. This is for when you press spacebar, the animation plays. Or you can turn on the search function or the tools. I have this on search. This is all good. System, 256 settings. This is now based on if you're on a Windows PC and you have NVIDIA graphic cards, you can turn on CUDA and select your GPU. If you are on an M1 Mac, you can turn on Metal and turn this on. This makes the later rendering faster. Save and load. This is all good. File path. Keep this actually turned on, compressed files. Okay, very good. The moment you click this, the settings are saved. So before we continue, one more time into the interface. With this, as you can see, we can move interfaces left and right. We also have these dialogues here. With this, we can, for example, show me the shader editor or the compositor or back the 3D view. We can also, when we go onto one of these borders, say right-click, split vertical, and right-click, split horizontal. You see it this way, then you can slice your interface as needed. Right-click and join. You see this then basically joins it all back together. No? Quite easy. These are some shaded buttons, like for wireframe, solid, material preview, and rendered view. Now, obviously, XYZ, view cube, move around, zoom in, camera, perspective, orthographic. Okay, so with all that, that basically covers the basic setup of where everything is with the interface. And then in the next module, we can take a look at how can we add basic objects, change scale, position, etc., and add materials. And then the end, how can we do an animation and render it? So now let's take a look at how we can add and manipulate geometry and objects. Blender, by the way, is a polygon modeler like SketchUp, Modo, Maya. It's not a NURBS or solid modeler like Alias, Rhino, or Fusion 360. To select everything first, we go to select all or press A, and then we can press X, so the X key, and delete. Very good. Then go to add, mesh, and there you have various objects: plane, cube, circle, sphere, cylinder, cone, torus, etc. For example, we click on cube, and there we have a cube. If we would like now to move this cube around, we can go to the move command and we can move this to here. No? There you see, there's the cube. I press N to turn on the transform property. There, you see this cube is 2 meters high, 2 meters wide, and it is positioned along X and Z at 0 and Y at -3 meters. If you want to work with metric or if you want to work with imperial, we can set this by the way up. Go to Scene Properties, Units, and then there you specify what you would like to work with. Okay. We can delete this one and add a cube again. There. We can change the size of a cube by, for example, adding the dimension here. Let's say 50 inches by 50 inches by 25 inches. And you see? There. Still, this object is at 0, but if we go to a side view, you see, well, it sticks a little bit below. This is one thing I would like to point out. You see there's the object center point. This is what this is about. Also, the rotation is what this center point does. The dimension and all this is really then the geometry. So let's make another copy. Shift-D, and then we can move this around. Also here, again, we can specify everything via these values or even move these around. When this is 50, we can move this to 50. Now you see then it fits right next to it. When you press Shift-D for copy, you see then it moves. We can also press X, then it moves along the X-axis, or Y, or Z, to constrain it to certain directions. Or when we use this move command, we move this around. Okay. I know this is basically a crash course, so I will try to keep myself really brief about the most basic important elements. But let's assume the outcome later is an animation where you have pieces dancing around over a ground, moving around, pulsating, or such. I will try to show you really the basic concepts, but the truth of the matter is that these basic concepts is literally all. And then it's really a matter of applying this to more intricate data sets. So I will do Shift-D one piece more. And now I will talk a little bit about snapping and maybe how to model a little bit. So we have something here. You see snap, vertex, edge, face. Let's go to vertex snap. You can turn this on. And when I click on this white ring, you see I'm moving this around. And the trick now is wherever my cursor goes to, it starts to snap to this point. So I'm painting the snap target. So I can keep this turned on or turn this off. With Shift, I can click multiple objects or also deselect from objects. You also see one is colored brighter, one is, the others are always colored less bright. This is always the active object, by the way. If you Google it, Blender manual active object, you can find what this means. I try again to keep this in this exercise or demonstration rather brief. Now I would like this to move and snap to here, so I can press G to move, hold the control key, move to where this should go to, and click. Now I can click this, move this to there, move this down, hold the control key, release the mouse button there. So very, very simple, as you can see how this works. I can also use the arrows to make this more precise. And here I'm moving the cube up to the height of the piece there. Okay, very good. So let's add a plane. There's the plane. Plane is way too big, maybe 10 feet. Look, we can type in dimensions. Pretty nice, no? 200 feet. Oh, way too big. Maybe 100 feet. Yeah. Still too big. Now you see it's really nice how we can, with this, modify everything. Since I scaled everything, I gave this a scale factor. Originally, this object is still just this big, and that's original size. I Control Z this. Basically, by the way, Mac and PC, Control Z, Control Y, the same thing. I'm going to apply the scale. This can be important to understand later. And when I do this, you see this is all set to 1, and this object now is really 600 by 600. Okay, so why did I do this? I can select all this, move this up. I can actually turn on snap to face, drag this down, hold control, and then there, you see, it snapped to that face. I can drag this around, and most times it's pretty precise in snapping to it. Yeah. Okay, very nice. So this maybe later should be a backdrop. Let's do some modeling. So how does modeling work? Edit mode. No, I do not move the object. I modify the geometry. We have point, edge, and face select. If I select a point, I can click a point and move it. If I select 2 points, well, I move the edge. If I select all 4 points, well, I move the face. No, that's the logic behind it. So these 2 points I can select, move this back. I could also have done this with the edge. And then I could go to extrude. This is also the E command. And then here maybe drag this one up along the Z axis. And then I can drag this one back. If I press X and say delete points, the edges are also gone. Undo, X, select delete edges with X. I still have these edges left because only this edge was removed. So that's kind of like the logic there behind. If one line or 3 lines share 2 points and I delete the 2 points, logically all 3 lines are gone. So here is this edge. I can press E to extrude and then Z and drag this one up and bring this over. This is kind of like why I work a lot with the shortcuts, not really with the menu. Let's undo this one more time. We would like to extrude this up by, let's say, 20 or 10 feet. E and Z, we are in inches right now. Upper left corner, you see D, 108, so 120 there. And I can go back and change this. It's not parametric like Fusion. It's more temporarily, I can adjust this command. I'll bring this up now. Cool. This is a corner we could round with the bevel command. Give this more segments, change the size. Oh, actually, that was not good because I beveled over the existing bevel. I needed to change the size there. But I made this mistake. We have a shape. It's kind of like for the Rhino alias people, welcome to G1, G2, G0 inverted stuff. That's kind of like how you can sculpt with polygons. Or what I can do is this edge selected, and I say up here, bevel weight 1. Thank you. Go to the modifier, add modifier. Modifiers are interactive modeling commands. Bevel modifier, then I can change this and say, go by the weight. So this is the weight we painted onto it. And look at this. There you see how I'm adjusting this. Adjusting the segments. Pretty much the same as we did before. And then when I select this and move this, you see how the result updates. And I can turn this on and off. Just as an idea so you understand what these things are. Okay, very good. So, there are obviously much more modeling tools, but I tried to do everything that could maybe be interesting for this exploration and some of the reference videos I saw. This has a little bit of facets here. So we can go to object and then say shade smooth. Very nice. The boxes we can keep boxy because, well, they stay boxy. So let's add another cube and we will do this cube via a plane. There we are. Then we will go into edit modes. I can also via scaling along an X or Y direction scale this. And then we will go to extrude this one up. Beautiful. Okay, now I will go add a cylinder. 64 vertices, radius, depth. There we are. Very good. I would like this to be rotated along the x-axis, 90 degrees. Bring this over, bring this to here, bring this to there. Okay. You see how this command updates based on what we did? I would like this now to be 90 and 90. So to be smaller and to apply scale, right click, shade smooth, same thing. This is the interface and thing you need to know. We need to break this edge. So here we go to this triangular piece. That's the mesh data, normals. Turn this on. Now we should have sharp edges. Cool. So I position this on there because what I would like you to show, since we for a moment also talked about the modifiers, let's go and add the Boolean modifier. Difference. Okay. Select this one. Now you don't see much. You see here these collections, they're really useful. Right click, new collection, and this I will drag into there, and then I turn this off. And that was the wrong piece. So this one drag back to there. This one here, we drag to there. Look at that. Beautiful, no? Here I will turn this also on there. So if we go into edit mode, it's the solid cube. And this Boolean modifier takes this cylinder and cuts it out. Shift D and Z, move this piece over. Select these two, bring this to there. Thank you. Few more fun stuff. Maybe, yeah, we go this way. Thank you. And here, array. Yeah, now we can just more or less. This one actually I will scale down with S. That's the scale command. Bring this one down. Bring this further. There we are. Again, do an apply for the scale, since I did this in object mode, and then add more. So why did I do this? First, you see, oh, there's actually two cuts, and that's because this object has two pieces done with the array modifier. So this command generates two cylinders. And then this has a command that uses this object to cut. But look, we can say collection. And for the collection, this one here I call wall cuts. With proper spelling, of course. Click on this, there we find it. Zack, look at this. Cool, no? Ooh. So beautiful. Okay. I could talk for hours and hours but again, I try to make this really short for your intro. YouTube is just perfect for more videos, but for what you try to do, or I think you need to not learn. I will try to limit myself to kind of like hopefully the most must-haves. I showed a little bit about moving things around, scaling them. Also snapping. There's one more task I would like to do. Shift D, bring this to there. Go into edit mode. Then I will bring these two up. This one, or Control R, maybe to do a slice. Control R and then click. That makes a loop cut, and I can bring this over. There we are. And now on this I press tab, by the way, tab key, or you go edit object mode. On this, I would like to position another piece. So here, Shift D, very good. I can press G to snap on this face. Okay, it snaps it. No, that's not what I want. Look at this. Align rotation to target. And we can even do this with multiple at the same time. So G, hold Control, and look at that. Ta-da! See? So it's rotated now. If this is not perfect, R, X, and 90, very good. So G now it flips around this way, because what I wanted to show you here is another element. This is really genius about Blender. Not all programs have it. Check this out. Global and local, what's this? Pay attention to the 3D widget. Look, this object is rotated 100 something degrees. And now I can slide this all across. I can move this along the y-axis, hold Control and snap it. No, actually, in this case, no, I should stop the rotation there. No, it's perfectly on it. Can go into edit mode, face select, move this face, there. Yeah, you see. Very good. Cool. So here, can select all this, move this over. Most times I work in global mode because then you move all at the same time the way you want. Okay. Beautiful. I'm clicking this collection, so that's the one I want to use. Maybe add a donut. Here's a donut. Scale this one up a little bit. And maybe also a sphere. There we are. Shade smooth. I will do this here. This one, very good. And these pieces I remove. Very good. And all this, maybe a little bit to there. Cool. Okay. So this kind of like reaches the end of basic introduction, how to move, create, manipulate geometry, objects, modifiers, and such. And then the next one, we will take a look into materials. So there are actually two more geometry types I thought might be good to show after I finish recording this video. So here they are. And one is actually quite fun. We got to add, and then we go mirror ball, and there is a mirror ball. Cool. So what are mirror balls? Check this out. Shift D and Shift D. Oh, interesting blobs. So yeah, this is what mirror balls basically are. You can create very interesting blob fluid-like structures. We can scale this up, scale this down, play with these pieces around. When we go to here, there's a mirror ball tool. When we go into edit mode, we can also say a mirror ball should be negative. Like this is actually cutting and not adding. So there's really a lot you can do with it. They require a little bit of time. So if you are interested in this, I definitely would suggest going to the manual and also watching few videos in YouTube about those. And the second type of geometry, I mean, it's kind of like what we did with polygons, but is subdivision surface modeling and how that works. So I will go ahead and add a cube. I'll move this one to here. There we are. Good, no? So nice solid cube modifier and go to subdivision surface. Okay, interesting. Okay, 2 times, 3 times. Ah, that looks smoother. Then let's go to object smooth. Where is it? There it is. Then go into edit mode. Select a face. Press E. Oh, look at this. You see how we are extruding more geometry out of it. So this is basically, yeah, a tool to create very fluid shapes. So I'm pressing E all the time to extrude. I can press E and escape to sharpen it, S to scale this down, E, push this back in, kind of like creating a C-like creature. Here I'm just pressing E, S, and then E and click E, S, and click in E. Yeah. Yeah, so this is basically subdivision surface modeling for you. Essentially, what this tool does, well, it is just a basic geometry, but then this modifier softens it for us automatically. And this is pretty much the go-to geometry tool for literally everything you see today being used in any cartoon, not cartoon, toon animation, like Pixar and Netflix and whatnot. Because this is, as you can see, creates a very soft and nice flows with very simplistic geometry. Okay, very good. That was this quick in section. Let's take a look at materials. So if I click an object and I go to here, this is the material tab. I can click new. Let's say floor. Click this one, new, and say donut. Yum, I'm hungry. And new sphere. We call this one cheese. And cube. This one should be cube too. So you see that I can click on this and say, okay, you're cube too. And when this should be cheese, let's give this a color. Okay, there's a color. The sphere we make red. And you might ask yourself now, well, why don't we see there actually any colors? Because right now this is shaded view, wireframe view, shaded view, and here is material view. There we are. We can select this one and maybe make this a nice green. Very good. Before we continue, let's zoom or scroll down a little bit. So with materials, I'm going to show you basic tools, color, reflectivity, metallic, roughness, and then also texture. So here's the base color. Subsurface color. With this, we can make something look more silicone, but this is a very computational intensive material, so we can ignore this for the moment. Here is a metallic slider that basically makes something more have a metallic reflection. Specular, that is plastic reflection, and roughness, that means if something is rough or smooth. Take a look at the sphere. If I go rough 0, see it's nice and smooth, and with roughness up, it gets blurry. And specularity down and metallic up. The big difference between metallic and specular, if we want to break it down, with specular you have white reflection, and with metallic you have reflections which are tinted by the metal color. You see all the reflections are bluish, reddish, and now they're white. Okay, no, not too complicated. Blender has two render engines, a real-time engine, kind of like Unity, and it has a path tracer like V-Ray, for example. Currently, this is the Eevee, so the real-time render engine. Here's Eevee or Cycles. Cycles is their path tracer. We can here turn something on like this, screen space reflections and refractions. Yeah, thank you. This is very good. Shadows. Yep. Now turn to this one. Okay, so this is what we see now. Because when you work with materials, you really need to see also light and color. Here's the world. World has a gray material, or white, or black. I make this white, but really weak. There. Now we need a light. Add and light. We have point, sun, spot, and area. Point light, well, like a, well, point, sun, well, it's a sun direction, so it's a directional. Spotlight, like a flashlight, and area light, well, that is like a, well, rectangular light. Okay, move this one up. We can go to the light object. We can adjust the size of the light, maybe 4 feet or 10 feet. 20 feet. We can increase the power. The bigger the light, the softer the shadows are. The smaller the light, the crisper the shadows are. And then we move this around. Now you can see what is happening. There's some flickering sometimes happening with the shadows. This is totally normal. This is simply part of their real-time engine. This, as you can see, is super fast. If I switch this to cycles and GPU and denoise, so there you see the result is much more realistic, but it takes a little bit more of render power. Cycles is the one I use at the end for the final design. Kind of like also the color breeding inside looks really good. And Eevee, that's the one that is good for when we set stuff up. Okay, very nice. We can then play also with more lights. So Shift A, and here is a point light, and I move the point light to here and there. And at this point, I'm trying to figure out what do we later animate, because we have to do this at 1.2. And you will kind of laugh about how easy it is to animate. When I was in school, our joke, however, was if you want to become an animator, well, that's going to be your wife or your spouse, because it's so time consuming. But it's also really fun. I can turn this off and then make a light coming in. Yeah. Okay, cool. Shift D, we can make 2 lights. There we are. Play with those. Shift D and X, make another light. It's kind of like a 3-key light system. We can make lights stronger and weaker, give them different colors. Something YouTubers like to do a lot with these colored light backgrounds. It's getting really a little bit overboard with them. The moment I start seeing a video where somebody has too many lights in the background and colors, I already get questioned if I want to continue watching this. Yeah, you should have a nice background, etc. But I feel like some are just, they're mindlessly copying from each other to make things look cool. And I don't know, sometimes I just backfires. Anyway, that's a different topic. So we have kind of like some basic setups done. Maybe let's take a look more into colors and materials. I make this a little bit brighter because I would say at this point you can get a good idea how this with the lights works. You see the position and the color, the shadow stuff, the size of a light. No? So let's take a look into materials. So when we do this, where do we get textures? So you can use a camera and photograph textures. Or you can go to websites. Textures.com is really good. Polyheaven, they're nice. They have HDRs, textures, models. I teach primarily recently also in interior design. So obviously SketchUp texture is a fantastic source of lots of materials. So you can download those, or you can go to PhD Dr. Google and you type in scratched metal seamless texture. and then try to find usable textures. So why did I actually type in seamless? Well, now when we are in CG and I find, for example, let's say here, this texture, and I would like to tile it, well, when this piece goes to the next edge, will this seam nicely, or will they be noticeable sharp edges so you can see where one image starts? Obviously, they call this seamless, but if we would tile this 20 times, we would see these patterns being repeated. So this is actually kind of funny. They call this seamless. It's not really that seamless. This might actually be a little bit more seamless. Here, this is not too bad. Now from a distance, now here we can clearly see how this is really noticeable as a pattern. This is more diffuse. So it's one of the issues if we need to find textures and we need to stretch them over it. Oh, look, this brushed one is kind of cool. This one is kind of nice. Yeah, let's take this one and we save as this texture. This is also 1000 by 1000 pixels, which is kind of okay. If you have a texture that's maybe 300 by 200, then that's not big enough. Or you like blurry results, then that's cool, of course, too. Okay. There's again, obviously, a lot more to talk about this. I'm not sure how good everybody is about image manipulation, but if you Google also topics like substance painter, substance designer, there are or digitizing materials for 3D rendering, you find really a lot there. And while I show you Blender here, again, this is also the beautiful thing. My main teaching tool is Blender for industrial design and even interior design. I prefer this even more than SketchUp, even while SketchUp is made for interior design. I find Blender offers significantly more tools in a maybe more complicated workflow or complex workflow. But anyway, what I wanted to say is everything what I'm going to show you here applies to literally all programs. That's the beauty of CG. Lights, materials, that's all the same. Okay, with that said, now, how can we bring these materials onto here? So here's a sphere. Actually, let's start with this cube, might be easier. And here, go to there, right click, horizontal, and there. And now I will take a sip of coffee and ask everybody to take a deep breath because I'm going to show you one of the coolest things of CG, but it sometimes freaks some people out, but it's amazing. And that is nodes. I will come back to this later, which will show one of the latest developments of Blender, which is already generating a lot of attention in the industry. Companies like Autodesk are getting nervous because Blender is getting very close to Maya and Houdini with zero investment cost. Anyway, so what is this, what you see here? Take a look at this. I changed this material. You see how this changes? If I change the specularity, you see this changes. So this is pretty much the same like here. Here we only see a vertical list, and here we see a flow chart. So we would like to bring in a material. So this is something now you might have to memorize, the way how this works. But again, the steps are pretty much the same in every program also that uses nodes. So we open an image node, open downloads, go to here, and we can use this one maybe. Open, bring this over to there. And look at that, there's a material on it. So if I select this one, let's do the same one more time. Texture, image, open, and there We can use maybe here this fabric one to there. Okay, cool. There you see how this is put over it. And here we do the same too. Add texture, image, open. And maybe here I would like to use this one, the leather one. And bring this to there. Cool. Okay. So what I'm going to show you now is image mapping and projection, and it can be done in a very simplistic, crude way, or this can be done in a more complicated way. So here, this is a sphere, and what you see pretty much is usual sphere mapping. It maps it around, and you see how the corner and the tip, it is, yeah, pinched. That's kind of normal. This is here a donut, and here, let's go to UV editor, and then here we go to edit, press A to select everything, and there you see, there's the UV layout. This is kind of like the donut unfolded. Think about a box. Here, let's do it this way. UV unwrapping. It's very easy to understand once you see the images. Maybe here, there, perfect. You see, there's a box, and there are the individual faces, and we unwrap them. So we can put on each face an image. And this is the 2D part. And then in the 3D world, it will look like mapped over the geometry. Here's also the sphere, the UV map. We put the texture on it, and then it will look correct. Here's it, for example, with a 3D character. So you have these individual islands, and then we can paint on them. So it's a pretty common standard process. You take your geometry, you unwrap it, and then you can place textures on it, or you can even paint on them. Blender, by the way, also has a texture painting tool too, no? So if you want to paint on it, like set substance painter, one of those. Anyway, so I will leave this mode. What can we do here? For example, I will go one time into edit mode, select everything, and there you can see, look, there is my cube and how this is unfolded. There, the cube again, and then here, this is a big piece. There is this piece. Okay. We will go to the shader editor one more time, because now what I would like to do is adjust the scaling of this. The next thing is a tick complicated, but just do this. We need to have a texture coordinate, and then we go to add and vector and mapping. Then we will connect UV to there and this to there. And now what happened is we say, so we use the two-dimensional coordinate system. And that was kind of like this UV coordinate system, this unfolding. Put this into a mapping, and then use this coordinate system to project this texture over the geometry in this color slot. So look at this. When we click and drag, we can select and we can add more. We can also stretch, we can compress. So this is the way how we can adjust in the position or the scale of the texture. Here we'll do this one more time. The first time it might be a little bit confusing, but well, once you did this 2-3 times, it becomes just second nature. When we increase the amount, we can actually go the opposite, 0.1. Make this really big. What you see here is like I click and drag down, and then I move my mouse left and right and scale this way. Here, by the way, we can even copy, Control C, Control V, paste this in so we don't have to always redo it. And there's kind of like a leather texture. Okay, good. Enough of this. What else can we do with these slots? So with this, you see this looks kind of fake. This is a very polished surface, and we have this structure on it. What happens when we put this into the specularity? Then there you can see we get a reflection of the shape of this pattern. When we put this into the roughness, we control where is the surface polished and where is the surface rough based on that image. We can even do this. So Shift A, vector and bump mapping. I put this into here. This is kind of like a dirty trick what I'm doing right now. And then this bump normal, we put into the bump normal input there. Oh, look at that. And now this looks exactly like a three-dimensional structure. So this is how you simulate materials. You have a base color and a structure image either for the bump mapping or for the reflectivity or so. Look up the term physically based rendering, PBR. This is kind of like the latest industry movement, how to do this. So here I will copy this just to show you how we can paste these elements between them. Control spacebar, by the way, and then scroll wheel. Zooms in and zooms out. Control spacebar makes this less full screen, less full screen. Scroll wheel in and out. Middle mouse button, shift middle mouse button. I think I know I totally forgot to say this at the beginning. Okay, now you see the materials start to look much more interesting. Obviously, that has also its limits. It is an image trick. Okay, cool. What else can we do? Two more interesting things. So this here is very linear. If we go to Boolean modifier, a modifier, we can add a bevel modifier and also give this a segment of 10. You here, bevel modifiers, segment of 10 there. These modifiers are too small, so I will apply the scale there. Now the size is correct. You see then this way we can get really nice rounded edges. And with this we can play with the value. It's pretty nice. And here, this is now going to be kind of cool. So check this out. I turn this off, turn this on. Here are my Boolean cuts. So I will call this Boolean. And here Boolean 2. Okay. And this object now, I will give another material. Plus, so new channel and Boolean cut. Zack. There it is. So this object gets this material based on where these objects are. So when I move this one over, there you see how this works. This is a wonderful technique to simulate or animate cut sections. Okay, I would say we are kind of like at the material exploration, and there's obviously really a lot more, but I feel like this is really what most of this is about. We also have emission. So when we give this, for example, a white, currently you don't really see much. because we would need to turn this to cycles and maybe turn these lights off. I'm pressing H to hide. And then this material, as you can see, we can turn into a light emitting material. So this is how you do this emission stuff. And then we also have alpha 0.2. Well, now that's transparency. That's how easy we can do this. Okay, very nice. So animation, and how do we do this? To make everything faster, I will go back to Eevee. Now, this is not as cool, but now you see, super fast. So how does the animation work? And that is really easy. But yeah, it's kind of like the rabbit hole. Be careful how deep you go. I love animation. We want to go to the let's go to the timeline first. So what you see here is kind of like the timeline, and this is the amount of frames. You can also show seconds. Now we see the length. We can also go to where do we have this? Yeah, here. How many frames? Not 50, 500 frames is what we're going to have. Middle mouse button or scroll wheel, and then middle mouse button left and right. Scroll wheel zooms in and out. Okay. So we will select this cube, sorry, this sphere. And we would like to go to maybe frame 1. And then we will insert a timeline marker. For that, let's go to, by the way, graph editor. This will be even easier there to do. So in here, the 3D view, wherever my mouse is, now I press I for insert, let's say, location, rotation, or scale. Let's say this one, I would like to only do a scale. Okay. Then I go to maybe 80, press I again. So the same scale. Go to 40, and now I press S, scale this down, and press I and click scale. Middle mouse button, scroll wheel, and you see what happens. So from frame 1 to 40, this moves down to this value and then goes back into this value. You see how these things change. And look, there's a keyframing. Now, and when I press spacebar here, nothing happens. What was the alternative? Control spacebar, Alt spacebar, Shift spacebar. Oh, Shift spacebar, yeah. So Shift spacebar. Place 24 seconds, 24 frames. So this is real time. This is what we would see in the video when rendered out. Okay, no? We can select this one and here go to local and I go to frame 1. I press I and say location. And then I go to frame 10, move this to here, press I, location, go to frame 20, go back, hold control and snap, I, location, go to frame 30. No, I don't want to do this again. Look at this. We can actually Shift D and X. I can just make copies of keyframes. How cool is this? Shift D and X, zoom, Shift D and X, zoom. And then zoom, 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 zoom. It's kind of like nicely pulsating. So Shift spacebar. Look at that. And then maybe here we go now to 80. So Shift D and X there. Okay, then 90, and then we go really far away. And I select these. Shift D and X. This then goes to 100. Okay, let's see how this works. Clong, 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 foam, clong. No? You get the idea. You notice with my sound effects, I really, really enjoy actually this type of work. Shift D and X, bring this over there. And I personally use a lot of very easy framings, like 5 frames, 10 frames for the steps. It makes it very easy. Shift spacebar. Ooh, hey, can we change the color? Yes, we can. Check this out. So, here's the piece. Let's go to the color. We press I for keyframing the color. We go to here, press I for keyframing the color. So start and end. Go to here. Let's change this to magenta. And I to fill in the keyframe. Oh, see that? Cool, huh? So everything can be animated. That means also this one can be maybe animated. So we, where's the piece? Say we go to here, have some fun. We make this a little bit abstract. So go to 0 and I, yeah, location 10, go to here and location, and then here I press A, Shift D and X, 10 frames, A and B, AA to deselect everything, B to draw the selection, G and X there, and then AA, all this, no wait, do this, Shift D and X, bring this over, there we are. Now I select 4, Shift D and X, and you see how quickly now we are blocking this out. Shift spacebar. Look at that. It's kind of cool. If we do this correctly, because I must have copied the wrong keyframe there. So start, left, right, right. Oh, yeah. Here they stay. You can select an X and then they're good. So these two, Shift D and X. Wait, what is wrong here? We can actually also move these keyframes. Look at this now. So this is actually quite interesting how this works. Left, right, left. Shift D and X. Is that maybe what it needs? I don't know where this is happening right now. Shift D and X. Yeah, because normally it should really go this way. Or we just do it then manually. This might be also good. So you see here, this is at Y. This, I can copy this. Then I go to here, Control V, paste this in, and then I say keyframe. Thank you. And go to here and keyframe. Thank you. This, Shift D, bring this over. Yeah, that is actually not the one. This maybe could be interesting to show this too. You see these locations here? That's why I was skipping the keyframes. So this is the Z. Z actually we don't really need. So I'm removing that keyframe. This is the X. We don't need that X. This is the Y keyframe. So just on the Y, we move this around. Okay, perfect. Now this doesn't even work anymore. And I love this really when this happens. Where is it? Oh, it's working. It's just down there. Good. So now Now I know what I made the mistake. I always drew the wrong keyframes. You see the Y was way lower, and I only looked at the X and Z. So everything was going well. I just made a kind of silly beginner mistake there. Now G and X. So here we bring this over. This is actually incorrect. G and X, bring this over. Not this one. B, Shift E and X. There. Clock, clock, clock. Okay. There we are. Kind of cool, no? We can also play with the light. So maybe here's the environment light. Set this to 0. Very good. Frame 1. With the mouse arrow keys, you can go left and right. I press I. Then I go to frame 160 there, and I say I, and then maybe to AD 1. Oh, really bright. 0.1. I now, or here actually, I on this field, shift spacebar. Now we can see how even this light goes up and down. Also light colors. Yeah, you guessed it. We can animate them. So white. Here we make this green. And 160, we go back to white. Shift spacebar. There, no. And in case you don't really like how something works, like the background, that was not really nice. So here's my the world. There it is. So this is everything. AA have nothing selected. If I select an object, it shows then the animation. AA, this is now the world. AX, delete the keyframe. 0.1. So now we corrected this. Okay. Yeah. Maybe here, Shift D. Bring this up. I bring this one to here. I'd like to do one interesting thing. We make a new material. I press on this object or the number because the sphere is used 2 times. There we make this maybe orange. Very good. And then I will say this should actually not have any animation. So A and X in the timeline. So this is all good now. See how this is removed. And then we say keyframe and 160 and keyframe. Okay, very nice. So why did I do this? This piece, I will put into a new collection. For example, out. I can press M to move this into the out collection. The collection should be invisible and not render. This button here is really important. You will get a Boolean modifier. And here we say sphere. So sphere 1. Yeah. Ooh, look at that. You see how this animates it. And then if we even would give this new material, so Boolean sphere, we would even see this being animated. Pretty cool, no? Okay, so this was everything about Super Crash Course animation. I hope you noticed what this means. Literally everything can be animated, position, scale, so much. Maybe one last, do we have an interesting thing here we could animate? Yeah, let's go with this place. And then here we will give new, click on this, click on new. No, actually no. We want this to be this. Yeah, very good. Size, we make this smaller. Okay. Oh, yay. That's good. Yeah, that's what we do. Okay, very good. So we go to here. And then I on this modifier at 1. And then maybe at 40 another I. And then at 20, and we can see how much do we do this. Maybe a 1 there. So that means then you and you, these two I can select, Shift D and X, move this over based on where you would like this to be. Maybe at this position now, I will move this G and Y a little bit higher up. There you see how this is now kind of like creating a cool pulsating effect. And there, I'm just moving this over to there. Shift spacebar. Yeah. Okay. And so forth. Yeah, let's stop here. So the last thing now we have to do is how do we render this stuff? And it's actually pretty straightforward. That's going to be the shortest one. Add a camera. There's my camera icon. Kind of small. S to make this big. Here I type in 0, tab 0, tab 0. You see how this camera has this triangle there? So we want this to face the object. So 90. And then this is the Y, no, the X. Yes. There. We can move this up, say 90. And then here I say right click, split vertical, and in N and T, I hide these pieces, turn this on, turn this off, N, or I mean N. And then in this view, I click this icon. No, this is my camera. So if I move this around, there you can see, I can take a look at my camera now. I can rotate this there. We can make this a little bit bigger, frame everything. If I select the camera, maybe some camera settings, perspective, lens. Now, logically, we have tilt shift for those who are familiar with photography. And we also have depth of field. The pass per 2 was somewhere. There it is. Maybe I move this a tick over to there. Shift spacebar. Now let's see how this works. Kind of cool. And we decided maybe at 160 everything is okay. So we can go to output, 160 frames. Yeah, that's good. We would like to render this out. As an industry professional, I render this out as PNG because this means in case the computer crashes, I can continue rendering at the frame where it stopped. That's very good. For you can also use the AVI, for example, JPEG. We specify a folder there. If this has a transparent background, you want then now, for example, with PNG, turn on RGBA. Very good. And then, so I have still EV turned on. We can do a quick render. So this might take a moment because I'm screen recording at the same time. So 4 seconds. Yeah, but how big is something? Look at this. This is actually the camera. So this is 1080p. If I go to 50, this then renders this 50%. So There, much smaller. We also have various slots if we would like to render different stages. Slot 1, slot 2, no. And these images then we can save. Or to render an animation, there we are. So now it renders frame by frame everything out. There you can see how this works. It's actually not too bad. So piece of advice, if you do an animation and the rendering is like 5 minutes and you have to do 100 frames, you're looking like 5 by 100, 500 minutes. So now it's going to take you a little bit of time. So I would always try to keep frames really small or have a really good, strong computer where you render. I have one work computer and I have one render computer. And if I need to render something online, there are even like online render services too. And this Eevee is also pretty fast now for previewing this quality of an animation with the Cycles render engine. It will take a little bit longer. While this one renders right now, it might be a good moment to say, or go to this Blender render online. So there's like Render Street. I use them a lot. Blender Grid is another one. There are some free too. For example, I think Polar Grid or Polar Array, Polar Grid. Yeah, I think this was the one. They're very genius because they give you like at a small, like it's 1080p, you can render for free. You can download the grid. There's also the download user manual. And this then basically runs you through the installation process. Because at the end, later in Blender, you only say, here, fetch available parts, and then hit render, and then uploads it. And then when you're done, you will see online in your interface when it's finished rendering. Talking about that, where is Blender? Oh, it's pretty close. So 30 more frames to do. While this continuous rendering, maybe another very good element to be aware of, Blender manual. I know it's funny to bring this up, but it's very useful to still go to the manual. It's very brief, they're very short. This is actually what's really nice about it. They have everything explained. Blender also even has a video editor, a really good motion tracking system built in, physics and fluid dynamics, particles, sculpting. So I don't want to say it's a huge competitor to ZBrush, but it's actually pretty good. And also Blender Artists .org. Now this is a forum where you want to be part of. Should you use Blender for a lot of your work? This is basically the main forum where people post their finished artwork or questions and or have technical issues. And yeah, I mean, well, this is a free program. I can't really say that this looks like beginner work, what people do with it. It is pretty significant. And also here with the sculpting, the texturing, the hair. Yeah, so definitely worth trying this out. And this is done rendering. Very good. Good. So let's see. There it is. And there's our quick animation we did. Obviously, also the camera can be animated too. So there's literally no end. So if we go to the camera, let's say here 50 and at the end 50, and then we go to here. Now we can go in and animate this. So this is all possible. There are also, I think, jitter effects. So N modifier, add a modifier, noise. So what does the noise actually mean? Hold on. Actually, I think we might need to have an animation. This is just the scale animation. Oh, yeah. Okay. So add a noise. Oh, yeah. You see, so the animation actually, there you can see how it jitters. Do, 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 do. It's actually pretty cool. This might be really nice applied to this one. So some elements we animate by hand, and then others we strength we animate then by or create randomly. And there you see that this is like so much more effective in like this seizure type thing, what I was looking for. And I think here, do we have a cyclic? Yeah, they even like cyclic things. So you see, I animate this one time and then ooh, you see how the afterwards this continues forever. Okay, very good. This kind of like reached the end. To bring this to an end, I would like to go back to one of the comments I made before geometry nodes. Geometry nodes is, for those who do not know what this means, pretty much I would say the newest addition to Blender that will finally blast open the doors for the program, not only to be used in small, but even in mid-size or large-size visual effect houses and studios. And what you see here is, well, maybe you see this tree, you see this structure, or you see here the surface of all these stones. Or even here, this is maybe a good example. Now you see a donut with the sprinkles over it. But in here, you see this node of commands, modeling commands, is placing all these sugar pieces over the donut automatically for you. So this is quite similar like these material nodes. And in Nuke, now we have processing nodes. But instead of material, it's for geometry. And here are some pretty cool examples. So a pavilion. But nothing is modeled by hand. So you can see everything is just adjusted via these modeling nodes. And this is just amazing. You can see how quickly you can adjust a design, explore variations. You cannot do this at this speed manually. This is also quite fun. It's kind of like this cute house with few building elements like those. And now there we see them. And with these geometry nodes, we can, or the artist here creates a system with which then he can at one point build complete houses, like tall, wide, and adjusted. Let's see, where's the video where he does it? There it is. So now you can see when he will adjust the elements here, everything will go a little bit taller or smaller. Let's see, there. There it is. You see, just a simple mouse click. And this one here is probably my most favorite example right now. This is very abstract. So this is an icosphere, and the person created some geometry that should fold over it, and based on an element that gets closer to it. So there the person starts crafting the geometry nodes. Obviously, you need to know what all these geometry nodes are. This is definitely not something you will learn in 10 minutes, but I thought it is good to see what you can do with it, because this is really outrageous. Also, how fast this works. Let's see, where do we have a nice animation of it? And we might maybe see this actually more at the beginning. And there you can see how this can adjust and play around. Really beautiful. And here are some other geometry node examples the person did too, with more simplistic. There you see that animation is just beautiful. Okay, very good. There's obviously more to talk about than we have time, but I hope that I was able to give you hopefully somewhat an exciting overview of what Blender as an open source 3D program could give you in terms of tools as a CG artist, as a designer, as industrial designer, or even like for color materials to just explore designs and represent them in interesting abstract ways.